Hello everybody, it's the Historical Gamer once again, and today we're returning to War in the Pacific, Admirals Edition. It is January 16th of 1942, and we are returning to our Let's Play series against XTRG. We have some cruisers in the South Pacific that were attempting to raid a Japanese group of convoys down there. We've evacuated from the territory of Mersing on the Malay Peninsula, and our submarines have fired torpedoes against a surface Japanese submarine and done nothing. Meanwhile, looks like our first cruiser force is trying to strike. We've divided our 2 heavy cruisers and 2 light cruisers and 2 destroyers to try and improve the likelihood of us intercepting Japanese shipping. There apparently is a troop transport, the Hikawa Maru. We attempted to close with them, but we were unable to detect them. It is 0% moonlight, so that's preventing us from getting a good visual on these enemy ships. Our ships have air search radar, but they don't have ship surface radar, so that makes closing for combat a little bit more difficult in nighttime phases. You can see a lot of maneuvering going on here. Looks like 8,000 yards, and our ships are opening fire. Looks like we got a 5-inch shell hit on the Hikawa Maru, close range. There's very little gunfire that's being exchanged here. Right? Maybe it's, again, because they can't see each other, and apparently the Japanese were able to escape. So 1 shell hit in on it, and the Japanese got away. God damn it. Meanwhile, hit but no explosion. It is the anthem of the American submarine in 1942. We had a hit but no explosion against a Japanese patrol boat in the north near... is it the Sakhalin Islands? But there's some oil up there in the north that we're attempting to interdict convoys which may exist up there. Japanese continue to unload at La Foya here just to the north of the southern tip of New Caledonia. So they have now firmly cut off our troops at Comac. The troops at Comac are a brigade of Indian soldiers. So those guys are kind of on their own now. And likely, well, they're going to fall. It's just a matter of when. I'm not going to be able to reinforce them. I don't have the strategic or tactical advantage to be able to do that. Okay, so we're into the day phase. We're into the air combat phase, if you will. We've got a lot of recon going on, a lot of ships being spotted, PBYs, other things like that. Looks like our cruisers are now moving east, so they've cleared... They've cleared Luganville with a wide berth, and we're swinging east. Hopefully these cruisers, at the very least, are safe and secure away from the Japanese carriers. Meanwhile, some Japanese flying boats flying out of apparently Espiritu Santos or Luganville, armed with torpedoes, are putting torpedoes into some cargo ships, which were at Nomaya attempting to unload supplies for our troops there. And these guys are getting some pretty good torpedo hits on them. There were 3 cargo ships there, and holy crap, the Japanese put 7 torpedoes into them and sank all 3. Jesus. Meanwhile, a large-scale raid against Rabaul is occurring with 33 G3M2 Nels. So maybe the Japanese are finally making a play for Rabaul here in the Bismarck Sea. I don't know what they're bombing. It doesn't appear they did any damage, but they're bombing something. Meanwhile, more air activity in China. A large raid against Cebu with 45 Sallies and 20 Oscars, bombing pretty much an abandoned force down there. We have no supply, a very small land force. We have no real hope of holding, but if they want to expend their effort there, that's fine. Meanwhile, 38 Zeros are escorting 30 Sallies and 6 Lilies over Johor Bahru. Actually, no, this is north of Johor Bahru. Against some troops there. We have a couple of squads disabled. Nothing too serious. A second raid coming in of 44 Zeros and 16 Sallies, likewise. Not really doing anything. And then a raid of 36 bombers coming in and doing a little bit more damage, mostly just disruption. Another raid, so the Japanese have a lot of strategic bombers apparently available to them now. They're just not going after Singapore yet. Which I guess is a good thing for us. We'll be reinforcing the Singapore Air Force with some Hurricanes and potentially some P-39 Airacobras in the near future. if we deem it worth it. I may not actually want to commit those airframes there. Some ship just sank. I don't know what. You get that little splashing of waves in this game, and you know a ship sank. Could be ours, could be theirs. Even if Fog of War is on, you still get that indication. So, B-17's doing some ASW work in and around Fiji. Some Nels are bombing Rangoon. Apparently doing nothing there. They bombed the cargo ships that are unloading there, but they did no damage. So he really did turn on his naval attack that turn. Not a terribly pleasing result. I thought the cruisers would have gotten at least a ship. He must have dispersed his convoys because we only saw one troop transport, and we saw a whole bunch of little red icons. So he may have pulled sort of a British North Atlantic move. When the British found out that the Germans had, I think it was the Scharnhorst and the Gneisenau that broke out into the Atlantic, they basically ordered some of their convoys to disperse. Additionally, and while the Gneisenau and the Scharnhorst didn't really sink a ton of ships in that scenario, it did open up easy pickings for submarines. Similar thing happened in the convoys to Russia at one point when I think it was the Scharnhorst got loose, and so some convoys were disrupted, and it led to really easy pickings for some submarines up there. Meanwhile, more Nels are bombing our ships at Rangoon. Again, no bomb hits there, so the Nels are pretty worthless without torpedoes, and it looks like he did send them in without torpedoes. We'll have to get a cap up over Rangoon next turn, although I wouldn't be surprised if that leads to a cap trap where he sends some zeros up there. Although, I wonder if he even has any zeros in Burma. He's probably got most of them down there in the Malay Peninsula. He could move them, I guess, but that would add some fatigue, so next turn should be relatively safe for us from a attempt to intercept perspective. Japanese bombardment attack at Wenkao. They lose troops, we don't. Japanese deliberate attack here to the south of Kwelin. We're being driven back toward Luchou. So 4-1 odds. 1,800 casualties on our end, 131 on theirs. Meanwhile, Japanese deliberate attack at Comac, an SNLF force and a Naval Guard force attacking the 44th Indian Brigade. 5-1 assault odds? Really? God damn it. All right, well, Comac fell. The 44th Indian Brigade surrenders. And 92 Japanese casualties to 837 Allied casualties with that Indian unit that surrendered. I know they were cut off, but I didn't think their supply was so bad that the results would be that bad that fast. Rangoon expanding fortifications, Wenkao expanding fortifications. Both of those are good news. And, wow, that was really kind of a disappointing turn. Not disastrous, but pretty disappointing. So I'm going to go ahead and step out here. We'll go ahead and jump back in once we're inside our turn. All right, guys, and this is going to be one of those turns that I don't think there's a ton going on in, at least. It's a busy turn, but it's not a turn with a lot of responses for me. With that being said, here we did pull our troops out of Mersing, and the rest of our troops down here are all on their way to Singapore. We're planning on evacuating the Johor Bahru line, and that is occurring. Meanwhile, our troops north of Johor Bahru are in the process of withdrawing. They probably won't get there this turn, but the following turn on January 19th, I think it will be, they'll get back to Johor Bahru. I plan to have Johor Bahru evacuated by January 21st if the Japanese don't press matters, and then from there we will fight the Battle of Singapore, probably starting somewhere around January 24th, or about a week from now, if he maintains a hot pursuit, which is yet to be totally determined. Meanwhile, my fighter squadrons at Rangoon, which are somewhat insufficient, about 25 fighters, 18 of them single-engined, are all being ordered to fly cap over Singapore to protect the large numbers of troop convoys that we have, or not troop convoys, but cargo ships, currently unloading at Rangoon. We have a cargo convoy of 5, 4, 2, and 3 ships, so that's 14, and then we've got an amphibious force of 4 ships that still has 1 ship unloading. China, I don't really have anything new to do. I did take the city of Pucheng, and the Corps here is going to be moving east to try and cut the Japanese off from their line of supply out of Chusan, but it looks like the Japanese may be bringing reinforcements in from Wenkao as well. Meanwhile, the battle was fought here, south near Kuilin. The troops that fought in it, looks like they've all pulled back to... where did they fall back to? Toward Luchao, although I'm not sure if any of them actually made it there. Doesn't look like it. And that force there is considerably stronger than the force at Kuilin. We'll have to see if the Japanese are going to make a move for Kuilin or not. Meanwhile, in northern China, not a lot else going on. Our troops near Luoyang are falling back west towards Sian. We have troops in the north falling back towards Sian. Not a lot of other changes here in the north. We are trying to get this force here that is south of Nanchang to fall back toward our own lines. It's a 1,100 force, some 20,000 infantry, 21,000 support troops. Important they fall back. That looks like the Chinese or the Japanese may be sending a force toward Ping Sian, which would cut their line of supply. But hopefully we should get to the adjacent hex here next turn, and then we'll see how fast we can pull back. Meanwhile, our cargo ship that had just come to Burma or to Bataan, the Yatsian, has made it back to the port at Tarkin, so she's loading back up with supply and will be heading back toward Bataan in an effort to keep that isolated position supplied. Meanwhile, the patrol craft Zeeman, which had 600 supplies, has unloaded about 400 of it. Hopefully the remaining 200 will come out this turn, and we'll keep those supplies in the Bataan Peninsula secure. We had some oilers at Balikpapan, which are now pulling out. We also have some additional oilers arriving at Oosthaven. And then we've got our task force already at Oosthaven, which is loading up on oil. 2 of the tankers are full. 2 of the new tankers are in the process of filling up. Meanwhile, a bunch of tankers have made it out. 17,000 fuel moving out toward Perth on this force. 8,000 oil from this force. 21,000 fuel from over here, and an additional 16,000 here. So all in all, the 16, the 21, and the 17 mean that we've got about 54,000 fuel coming out and about 8,000 oil, all headed down for Perth. Additionally, we already have some ships which are on the way. Looks like 25,000 here, 10,000 there, 6,000 here. So quite a few units of fuel are coming in to Australia from the Dutch East Indies still. The most exciting area is the area near New Caledonia. Japanese surface force, which had been south just off the coast of Australia, is moving northeast right here. Japanese carriers appear to be moving directly east, so perhaps toward Nomaya for a strike there. Our cruisers, which had raided near Luganville, didn't really accomplish much of anything, but the Minneapolis group is falling back on Pago Pago from up here in the north. And then the other group here is a little bit further south with the Pensacola. They're also falling back on Pago Pago, and they're also low on fuel. So that's the situation for both of those units. The one in the north is fully detected at 10 out of 10. The one in the south is only lightly detected. So this guy could end up becoming a bit of a target or destroyed. It doesn't have enough fuel to get Pago Pago on full speed, though, so we've reduced it down to normal speed. Japanese carriers here to the south are moving east. My guess is our cruisers, which have the head start, should be safe from them. But who knows? If they go on sprint, that may not be the case. It does look like the carriers are pulling away from the Australian coast, which is great. No bombing of the Australian coast. And some tankers up here at Townsville are sort of queuing up to unload about 21,000 fuel. About 47,000 fuel onto the Australian industrial east coast. Down in New Zealand, a tanker force here has arrived. It's got 10,000 fuel left on the tankers. They've already unloaded over 28,000 fuel to Auckland, which should give all the various industries in the Northern Island sufficient resources to operate the industry. Other convoys are all kind of moving in and kind of following the prepared line of thinking. Not really a lot else to talk about this turn. Some ship movements, some recon, some cargo ships, but nothing earth-shattering or anything like that. Our cruisers off the east coast of New Guinea are still making their way south. It does look like the Japanese may be going for Rabaul. We see here a destroyer and a cruiser force just adjacent. if there's any troop transports there. We do have a ground force there, but it's likely insufficient to hold against any serious resistance. Meanwhile, I scanned the intel report. There was nothing super interesting or revealing. If we go to the intelligence report, we're seeing a pretty slow day for everybody involved, about 5 Japanese aircraft lost versus 2 Allied. If we list top pilots, oh wow, we got more aces now. So we've got 2, 4, 6, 7, 8 aces, one of them with 6 kills, several and a lot of them in the Flying Tigers. We do have a couple of near aces and buffaloes, but no actual aces and buffaloes. And that's the situation right now, guys. I know this is a little bit of a shorter episode. I don't have a lot else to say. We've got things in movement. We've got ships moving around. We've issued some orders, but nothing super worthwhile sharing at this time. We'll have to see what the next turn has in store for us. But until the next turn, this is the Historical Gamer saying I'm going to go ahead and sign off here tonight. So I hope you guys are enjoying. Let me know your thoughts below. And until next time, this is the Historical Gamer saying thank you for watching, and I'm out.